Yes. Yeah. I am just recording this session just for people who can't make it this evening. Just to introduce myself briefly before we begin, I'm Laura Piercy. I'm one of the Associate Directors of LeSwap. I'm also the UCAS Coordinator for Acklam Burley and one of the Pathways and Progress Leaders at Acklam Burley. My job there and at LeSwap is a lot around HE, careers, pathways, what our students do when they leave us at the end of year 13. So this session this evening is mainly focused on UCAS, but there are some other bits of information about other pathways, especially apprenticeships at the end. But the majority of the presentation does focus on applying to university. Just to let you know as well that this is a repeat of the webinar that I did in July this year. So if you did attend in July, you're not going to hear anything any different this evening. So I absolutely won't be offended if you leave us. So with that, I will get going. So this is, as I said, mainly focused on UCAS and apprenticeships for 2023-24. So intended for students who are applying, starting their applications now, and will be applying in year 13 and will be applying to start university in 2024. I will talk a little bit about deferrals as well at some point, but as I say, this is primarily for those students. I've got the Acklam Burley branding on here. That's the PowerPoint that I used, but this is, of course, for families of students who attend all of the LeSwap schools. So I'm going to start at the very, very beginning, and there might be some stuff here that you know, but I'm going to assume that we have people who don't know a lot about UCAS. So just to let you know that there are two main deadlines for UCAS. The two external deadlines are, the first one is coming up on the 16th of October, and that deadline is for students, only students who are applying to Oxford or Cambridge universities, any course at Oxford or Cambridge University, or for medicine, dentistry, or veterinary science. So that deadline is just a few weeks away. What we call the main UCAS deadline is the 31st of January next year. So after the winter holidays, and that is the last Wednesday in January, Wednesday the 31st. So if your child is applying for any course that isn't Oxford, Cambridge, medicine, dentistry, or veterinary, their final UCAS deadline is the 31st of January.
It's not so great when we've got multiple.
Sorry, I'm just going to just pop out and just mute a couple of people there. Thank you. So we have a couple of deadlines that are earlier than that in the interim. One is we said Friday the 20th of October. We would like all students to aim to have shown their tutors at least some of a personal statement by that date. We know that they won't be finished by that date for most students, but we're wanting a draft by then. And then we are aiming for students to have their UCAS applications submitted before the the winter holidays. This just takes the pressure off in January. And it means that students are not scrabbling and scrambling to get their applications in at the last minute. And it also gives our tutors plenty of time to write the best possible references for those students, and meaning that they're not trying to pull them together again at the last minute as students are making last minute decisions or changing their minds. We know that some students will be sending their applications off in January. That's fine. These are deadlines that we are aiming for. So for those of you who are not familiar with UCAS, it's the Universities and Colleges Admission Service, and this is a centralised service in the UK that students use to apply for the vast majority of undergraduate degrees. There are a very small handful of universities and colleges who don't go through UCAS. There are some private institutions that don't go through UCAS, but they are very few and far between. The vast majority is through UCAS. The good thing about UCAS as a centralised service means that students only send one application, and that application can go to up to 5 universities or courses. They don't have to send a separate application off to each place that they want to apply to. UCAS has two functions. It's got the apply function, an application form, and a track function. And the track function is what the students use once that application's been sent, and that is used to manage their applications. So they use UCAS to send the application. They also use it to view their offers, to accept their offers. And if they decide that they, of course, that they don't want to go through to use UCAS anymore, then they can use it to cancel or withdraw their application as well. We can track their applications at school, and the application is tracked by your child's base school. There'll be a member of staff at the base school that has an oversight there. I'm the member of staff for Ackland Burley, for example. We can see the application that your student that your child has done, as long as they have used their buzzword to connect their application to the school. We can see where and when the students applied, and that also means that we press the final button. So when the student pays and submits their application, it actually sends it to us. It doesn't send it straight to the university. So we have that final ability to check the application before the student sends it off. UCAS does have a cost. It's £27.50, and that is just one cost to apply for up to 5 courses. So this is how the application works. The student will go to ucas.com/students. Most students will already have a UCAS hub set up because they needed to use it to book to go to the UCAS exhibition. If they went to UCAS Discovery at the Excel in March this year, they will already have an account. And each school will have a buzzword. Ours at Ackland Burley is Burley 2024, but each school has a different buzzword. So please do check in with your child's tutor or head of year. They will have that buzzword to hand. The first part of the application is that they put in all their general admin information. So this is
she's meant to be watching that, not you.
This is things like their contact details, their address, and their education. They also have to enter all of their qualifications. The qualifications they already have, so their GCSEs, and the qualifications they're currently doing, so their A-levels and or BTECs. They pick their courses. They write their personal statements, they pay their £27.50, and then the job is ours. The school, their base school, then enters their predicted grades and enters an academic reference for each student before that is then sent off to UCAS.
Hello. Could I ask a very, very quick question?
Sorry, can I please ask that people ask questions at the end, if that's okay?
Sure.
Thank you. That is actually a really good reminder. I forgot to say at the start. If you do have a question, please just wait until the end of the presentation. That would be great. If you do want to ask a question as well, you can always type it in the chat, and then I will pick up those questions at the end and be able to answer them. Or, as I say, if you wait until the end, I can just answer your question. You can ask me. Thank you very much. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to show you what a UCAS application looks like for most students. So if I just pop on this screen share instead, what you can see here is my kind of test account, my dummy account that I've set up for a test student. You can see that the students have to fill in each of these sections here, and when they are filling, it very handily changes the color at the bottom and says section complete. And then in a separate section at the bottom, they add their education and their personal statement. And then in this big section at the top that they can't miss, they then click on here to add each of their course choices. So we'll look at this again as I go through the application, the presentation, but just to let you know that this is what your child will be looking at when they log into UCAS. So what do we do? This is what the staff at the swap will be doing in order to help your child. The tutor, your child, or every student will swap as a tutor. It's their job to oversee the UCAS application, and that's mainly done in the Monday period 3, personal development or tutorial time. It's why it's so important that young people do come to that period. Tutors will advise on university choices. They will deliver lessons on how to complete a personal statement. They will review the personal statement, and they will compile each child's reference. Subject teachers write the content, the academic content for each of these references that's used by the tutor. They provide the predicted grades. They support with pre-assessment or portfolio preparation if it's needed. There aren't that many courses that need that, but if it is. And then the head of year or the director of learning or the student pathways and progress leader, depending on which staff are at which school, we advise on university choices. We review the application overall before it goes. We review personal statements and references, and then ultimately we are the ones who press the button and send it off to UCAS. So a very quick run through of each section then. The profile section that I showed you with the boxes in that say things like nationality and contact details, that is what I often call the admin section, because it's really, really quick and easy to fill in. And this is really just the student. It's very straightforward. They should ask if they are unsure about their nationality or residency details. For finance, again, 99% of students will need to select UK Student Finance Services. Any student who is entitled to a student loan, which is nearly everyone, should select Student Finance Services. I have got a PDF step-by-step guide of this with screenshots. So it's quite long, but it is a really kind of clear step-by-step guide with screenshots. If anybody wants a copy of that, I can send it to you. I'll put my email, you'll see my email address at the end. But this section, the beginning, is really easy. It takes about 15, 20 minutes to just get through the whole thing. The next section only appears when you've done the first section, so you can't see these two boxes until you've filled in all the generic information at the beginning. And this is the diversity and inclusion box and the more about you box. So the diversity, inclusion box asks the student for information about their ethnicity, gender, sexuality, religion. That is used by UCAS for monitoring. They don't have to, there's a prefer not to say option. If they don't want to give that information, they don't need to. However, there are two important sections here that we would like all students to fill in. One of them is the parental education and occupational background. So this asks the student what their parents' occupational background is and if their parents have went to university. We would like you to fill that in particular, if the student is what we call a first generation applicant. They're the first generation in their family to have gone to university. That can sometimes mean that they get a contextual or lower offer from the university, but they can only make that offer if they know that information, which is why we ask you to give it if they are happy to. And the more about you section asks the student if they've had any any responsibilities, any caring responsibilities, if they have refugee or asylum seeker status, if they've had any mental health challenges or disabilities. Again, we would really like students to fill that in where they feel comfortable. Because again, the more information the university has, the more support they can offer to the student once they're there, or they can potentially make contextual offers to that student. So it's not compulsory, it's totally up to them, but we would encourage them where they are comfortable to give that information. We have also asked students to complete an online form to give us information about things like if they've had any challenges or any disruption to their learning. And again, and that is the kind of information that we will use to put in their reference in the extenuating circumstances box of their reference, which again, universities can sometimes use to make contextual offers. The qualifications section is next. This is a little bit fiddly. Again, better that they fill it in sooner rather than later because it can be a bit fiddly. They need to enter everything they already have. So all their GCSEs, regardless of grade, any BTECs, any music grades that are a grade 5 and over, when they achieved them, where they did them, the exam board and the grade. Now, the exam board is key there. You can't enter it without the exam board. So a lot of students find they have to dig out their GCSE certificates because understandably, they can't remember the exam board. If they've done a qualification more than once, so for example, they've redone a GCSE, they enter the most recent and the best grade. If they are currently resitting a GCSE, they put in the grade that they originally got, but then they put in that they are resitting that GCSE again. They also need to enter any qualifications that they are currently doing. So A-levels, BTEC, CTECs, as I said, GCSE resits, EPQs, anything that they are doing at the moment, but they do not enter their own predicted grades. That is something that tutors do based on the information from the subject teachers. And each student should need to enter each qualification they're studying under the LSWAP school that they are doing it at. So, for example, if they're doing history at Burley, but they're doing maths at William Ellis, then they need to enter Ackland Burley and put history under Ackland Burley, and William Ellis and put maths under William Ellis. Again, this has all been covered in the Monday period 3 sessions, so they should have a really good grasp of how to do this. So families don't have a huge role, I guess, around those bits because it's very much an administrative section. Where you can really support and really help students is when they start to choose their courses. Once the application's gone, it's really hard and it's sometimes impossible to change it or amend it. If a student does have a massive change, they can decline all their offers or withdraw and start again, but that's not something that we want to happen. So we want students to make the right choices from the beginning. They should look really closely at a variety of things to do with the course. So the type of university that they're applying to, whether they want to be on a campus or they want to be in a city, the location, Aberdeen might look really appealing and fantastic until you look at how far away it is. The most important thing to look at is the actual course itself, because that is the thing they're going to be doing for 3 to 4 years. So what kind of modules are offered? What are the assessment methods? How is it assessed? How often is it assessed? All that is on the university website. So underneath on the uni website, in the course area, it will break down exactly what they do in year 1, 2, and 3. Graduate destinations can be worth looking at. What do students do when they finished at this uni? Do they go to work? Do they carry on? Do they stay in education? What do they do? And it's always worth as well looking at league table rankings. There are 3 different main league tables that we use for UK universities. They all use slightly different criteria. For example, Times Higher Education takes research into consideration. The Guardian Good University Guide doesn't. Research is something that's more important generally to postgrads than undergrads. So if you're going to be looking at league tables, really do check what they're actually measuring in that criteria, and check subject rankings as well as university rankings, because you might find that a university that's top 5 for generally is actually not top 5 for the particular subject that your child wants to do. UCAS has a really good search function. 3 schools that use Unifrog, so William Ellis, Burley, Parliament Hill, all use a platform called Unifrog. LSU use a different platform called Grofar, but they all have example personal statements and lots of support on there. And if students find that they don't have a login to one of those platforms, their tutor will be able to give that to them. The best way to choose a course is to go and have a look, to do your research online and to go to university, to go on campus tours, to go on open days, to do workshops or tasters. If they can visit, that's great. If they can't, nearly every university has virtual open days, virtual tours that they can take part in now. Once students narrowed down their choices, so they've got, say, a top 10, then they need to look at entry requirements and be really brutally honest with themselves. They've got mock exams coming up in just a couple of weeks as well that might be able to help them with this decision. So, look at the entry requirements for that course. If the course needs 3A stars, if they have not been working at 3A stars at any stage so far, and it's not realistic they're going to get 3A stars, then you do not apply for that course. We want them to be aspirational. I'll talk about that in a second, but we don't want students to apply for things that are wildly unrealistic. As I said with Aberdeen, do they really want to live 250 miles away from home, even if they really love the uni? Traffic, travel time, travel cost might be all things that they want to think about. Have they read the course content? history, for example, is pretty big. One university's history course will be extremely different to another one. Do they know what they're actually going to be studying? Do they know how the course is assessed and does it work to their strengths? If they hate exams, then they maybe don't want to choose a university and a course that only assesses via 3-hour closed papers. And does it link to what they want to do in the future? If they don't know what they want to do in the future, completely understandable, does it keep their options open? And, the really, I guess, the biggest one is, do they actually want to do this for 3 years? Do they enjoy it? Because you're a long time at uni, and it's intense and it's hard work. So how to work out just the word UCAS tariff then. So when you look on the university websites, some courses will say we want 3 Bs. Some courses will give you a number. We want this many UCAS points. So each grade is worth a fixed number of UCAS points. So at A level, you can see there, an A star is worth 56, a B is worth 40, and E is worth 16, with the other grades in between that. And at BTEC, at double BTEC, double distinction is worth the most, 112, 64 for a merit, 32 for a pass. And obviously you add together the number of A levels or BTECs and A levels that you're doing to get your total number of UCAS points. So as I said, sometimes they'll say we want 3 Bs, sometimes they'll say we want 140 UCAS points, 120, sorry, UCAS points, and you can make that up through whatever. Do check the entry requirements to see, because as I say, sometimes some subjects have particular requirements. So you have to have done a particular A level, for example, to be able to apply for that course. You can get some UCAS points from elsewhere. High-level music grades give you some points. There are some like lifeguard qualifications that give you some points. Unis aren't that bothered about things that aren't A levels or BTECs or Scottish Highers. They're bothered in that they are interested in it as part of your personal statement and as part of your enrichment, but they're very unlikely to include UCAS points from things like a lifeguard qualification in what they're asking you to get in the entry requirements for that course. The entry requirements are usually made up of academic qualifications. There's a link there to the tariff calculator. I will put this presentation will be on the LSWAP website, and I'll also send it to the admin teams at each school to make sure it's on the individual school websites as well. Again, if you want to email me, I can send it directly to you after the presentation. So once they've answered these questions and they've really got a really solid sort of shortlist, students need to ask themselves, they need to choose. They need to choose, we would recommend 2 aspirational courses, 2 safe courses, and 1 backup course. So spread out their 5 options. They can choose more than 1 course at the same uni if they love it. So if they go to York and they absolutely fall in love with York University, then they could apply for, say, English and English and History at York. They should not choose 3 courses that need 3 A stars. Equally, they shouldn't choose 5 courses that need 3 Ds. And as I said, the link to the calculator is there. So if the entry criteria is listed as points rather than grades, then you can go in and work out how that equates to grades using the tariff calculator. So, for example, skip past that. If you're an A-level student and your current grades are BBB, you're working at BBB, we would recommend that you choose 2 choices that are around the AAB, ABB kind of entry criteria, 2 that are BBB, and 1 that is BBC or BCC. And similarly for our BTEC students, if that's your kind of working at grade, then we would say choose 2 aspirational again, 2 safe, and 1 backup course. So you're spreading those choices. The last thing you put on the application is your personal statement. It's the student's personal statement. This is their opportunity to show the university they're the best student for the course, and it's primarily an academic document. We are looking for the statement to cover these things: their skills specifically in the subject that they're looking to do, evidence of those skills, and evidence of extra reading, wider reading, supercurricular activities outside of school that support them. The statement should also be as well written as possible. We want to show that they're literate and they're good at communicating. They should absolutely include extracurricular and work experience, but they must make it relevant. So the university is not going to be interested in the fact that they were in a play when they were in year 9, for example, or that they did work experience in a primary school in year 10 if they're applying for a physics degree. It's got, we're looking for things that are linked to the course that they are applying for. So just a few do's and don'ts, and students have had all these, they will have these via that Monday period 3 session. We've done lots of work and are continuing to do lots of work on personal statements in those sessions. They should be specific. They should refer to other supercurricular learning that they've done to show that they're engaged in their subject outside of the immediate lesson. Relevant work experience, volunteering awards and so on. And they should always, of course, proofread their work and keep the tone academic and professional. Please, we don't want them to lie because their tutors know them quite well in most cases and they will know. This can be really hard if students have got lots of things that they're proud of. It has to be relevant to what they're applying for. We don't want things, as I say, like an attendance award from primary school, things that the university aren't going to be particularly interested in. We don't want, we said we want them to keep the tone academic and professional, but we still want it to sound like them. What we don't want them to do is swallow a thesaurus and try and change like every other word to something more fancy. Most of the time it sounds weird or it doesn't make sense. So they should write as them and, and it should sound like them. We don't want pretentious quotations. We don't want cliches. We want to just, they should think of this as a page of why they want to do that course. Why do I want to study this further? Why will I make a good student? So so that's actually the final bit that the student puts into the application is the personal statement. The final thing that we put into the application is a reference. So as I've said, we take subject-specific information from each teacher and we put that together to provide a really focused reference that is tailored to the course that that student is applying for. So this might mean that if a student is applying for medicine, for example, and they're studying biology, chemistry, and something like history, there might be little to no information about that third subject in there because it's the biology and the chemistry that the university are really interested in. We also include a section that's got general information about the swap and their base school. That's just things like how many students we've got on roll and that kind of information. We also include any extenuating circumstances regarding the student. As I said, this might be personal circumstances or academic circumstances. We have asked students to provide that information via a form if they are happy to. It is not, they don't have to, it's completely optional, but the more information they give us, as I said, the more we can write a tailored reference for them. We also include predicted grades for each subject. These are decided on by subject teachers, and those predicted grades are based on year 12 work, HSE grades, potential to improve, work they've done in class, work during year 13. It's a holistic grade, but it is an aspirational grade. We do set those grades to give students the best possible chance, but we will not make them up. So we won't pull them out of nowhere. As I said with the A-star example before, if a student has never achieved up to this point, up to the end of September year 13, has never achieved an A grade on a piece of work in a subject, we will not say that they are going to achieve an A grade. The sixth form team, so myself, the directors of learning, the heads of years, we don't change predicted grades because we are not subject specialists. So we listen to the professional judgment of subject specialists. They are the experts. They set the predicted grades. So all this is sent off. The application is done, hopefully before Christmas or before the 16th of October if you're early entry. Off it goes, flying to UCAS and to the admissions teams. The universities then have to make an offer. They have to decide which students they're going to make an offer to. And they do this in a few different ways. The main factor most universities use is the predicted grades. They look at the personal statement. They look at the reference. Forgot to put it in there, but they do look at the reference. A very small number of universities set their own assessments. If your child is applying to a university that sets its own assessment, you should know by now, we should know by now, because most of the time they need to have either registered for them or have done them by now. So this might be, again, medicine and dentistry, sometimes veterinary. Some law courses need students to sit something called an LNAT, and lots of courses at Oxford and Cambridge. There are a few courses at other universities as well, such as Warwick, that have their own assessments, or they require students to sit another assessment. And again, a small number of universities interview. Expect to be interviewed for Oxbridge, medicine, dentistry and veterinary, and some vocational degrees like nursing. And lots of performing arts or music degrees will run auditions. Art courses often invite students in to show and talk about a portfolio. So it's a more an informal interview. Other than that, very few universities actually interview. So again, unless your child is applying for a very particular course, they probably won't get an interview. If a student is sitting a UCAT, BMAT, LNAT, an external course, they are sat outside of school in most cases. And again, students who are doing those by this point should know, because that deadline is so close. As I've already said, very few courses and universities interview. They are usually panel interviews with a couple of academics from the university. They are not, despite what you might sometimes read, there to ask stupid or confusing questions like, what kind of berry is the best berry, or like weird things like that. They're not trying to catch them out. They're not exams. They're not memory tests. They are there to assess how well a student would fit on a course, and they are genuinely as much for that student to decide if they want to go to that uni as they are for the uni to decide if they want to make an offer to the student. Any student who is going to have an academic interview, we will offer we offer mock interviews for those students. So if your child is likely to have an interview, they will be contacted about mock interviews. Early entry, as I said at the beginning, is any of those courses. And if your child is an early entry student, then we should know by now, because that deadline is really close. If your child has not yet decided whether or not they are early entry, then they will not be able to apply for any of those courses starting in 2024. It may be that they can take a year out, and of course they can put an application in next year, but we won't be able to support an early entry application at this stage because it's just so close to the deadline. So the unis have got all their applications, they've interviewed, they've read personal statements, they've looked at predicted grades. If you put your application, apart from early entry courses, all other courses, if you put your application in before the 31st of January, the university have to consider it. UCAS doesn't close, so you can put applications in after the 31st of January, but the universities don't have to pay attention to them. And if it's a competitive university or a competitive course, they probably won't. So we do set a really hard deadline of the 31st of January. Most offers are then made before the end of March. So if your child meets that 31st of January deadline, they will know by the end of March if that university is offering them a place. And then they've got until June to accept or decline their offers. They will usually get one of two kinds of offers. They're nearly always conditional. That means you've got a place on this course as long as you get 3 Bs, or as long as you get a B and 2 Cs and you pass your maths GCSE resit. Occasionally, you will get an unconditional offer. This means that the student has a place, that they're being offered a place at that university, regardless of their grade outcome. We do ask students to be careful around unconditional offers. Universities aren't always very ethical with them. Sometimes they can be used to try to entice a student to take a place that they might not have otherwise. So we would advise students to only take up an unconditional offer if it's really somewhere that they want to go, and don't be kind of bamboozled by it. Once they've got all their offers, so once they've got a reply to all 5 of their choices, they need to then narrow that down to 2. a firm choice and an insurance choice. That firm choice is where I want to go.
No, tranquilo,
And,
no hay problema.
and the insurance choice is a backup. So the insurance choice should be a lower grade offer than the firm choice, because usually, in most cases, that is used if the student doesn't get the grades to get into their firm choice. You cannot switch between the two. So they must be certain. They can't decide that they suddenly want to swap them around, or they can't choose any of the other three offers that they've turned down. So that's why they get quite a long time. They get up until like the 8th or 9th of June to make this decision, because it is a big decision. And just what I said there about unconditional offers, like look at them very carefully. If they choose an unconditional offer, they're not going to get an insurance in most cases, because there's no grade requirements, there's no entry requirements. So if they choose an unconditional offer, that's where they're going. So they need to be really, really certain. In the unlikely event that a student doesn't get any offers, or if they change their mind and they just decide that I don't want to do architecture anymore, I want to do economics, then they can use something called the UCAS Extra service. So this is from February, they can either decline any offers that they've got, or if they don't have any offers, they can start choosing courses in UCAS to apply for via UCAS Extra. If they accept their offers, but then in August they don't get the grades that they wanted or expected, they are then eligible, and so they don't meet the conditions of either their firm or insurance offer. They will go into clearing, and they're automatically put into clearing. Clearing is a list of just all courses that are not full. They can also use clearing to trade up if they do better than expected. So if they have chosen courses that are B's and C grades or sort of merits at BTEC, but they actually get a distinction star, then they can use clearing to look for a course that has higher entry requirements if they want to. Clearing actually opens in July. So if they decide that they've changed their mind or they don't like their offers, they can start looking for new courses from July. They don't need to wait till they get the results in August. I'm only going to touch on this because it's a massive topic, and I do a full session on this in February. But just to touch on on paying for university, because I know it's a massive, massive consideration for lots of our students and our families. Tuition fees and loans can be really daunting, but there is very little to pay in advance, and the loans are taken back out of postgraduate wages via PAYE in most cases. The amount that the students pay back per month is actually very small, especially if they earn 30 grand a year or less. When they get above 30K, they start to pay back in, it starts to become a little bit more, but below that, they are looking at, so for example, if a student is earning £30,000 a year, they're looking at paying something like £15 a month off their student loan. It is a very small amount. The deadline for student finance is the end of May. Students can apply before they get their offers. And as I say, loads more on this next year. Main ways you can help then are to look at the grades that your child is likely to get with them, to be realistic, to be really encouraging, to visit universities and open days with them where you can, to read their personal statement. If you're not confident reading a personal statement, then please encourage them to talk to us about their personal statement, chat about courses, chat about careers, and put the deadlines on your fridge or somewhere else in your house. Know them and remind them when those deadlines are. A big list of useful websites there that you might want to have a look at. And just for kind of 5-10 minutes at the end, I just want to talk briefly about what if they don't want to go to university, because they don't have to. And I think especially at this time of year, it's like UCAS, like shouted at them by everyone at school. And we can sometimes lose sight of the fact that they really don't need to go to uni. But if they don't want to, there are lots of options. We have an increasing number of students who finish with us and actually go to college or do other FE courses, sometimes in trades, sometimes in subjects different to what they've done. We've had students wanting to do veterinary nursing who've done things like an animal course at Capel Manor, for example, and then gone on to do veterinary nursing. Apprenticeships are obviously a big buzzword at the minute. There is always work. We have every year a couple of students who get a job and going to work. And increasingly, I think there's a real post-COVID effect at the minute that we've got lots and lots of students taking gap years. They've not been where they weren't able to travel or go anywhere all through their GCSEs. Now they can. So as well as level 3 courses that are really specific to what they want to do. We have especially for Macklin Burley, because that's where we teach level 3 art BTEC, we have lots of our students who do art foundation courses, a standalone foundation year. Some do them at college, some do them at universities. Loads of our students are really successful at these. They're great prep for uni if they want to go, and if they decide they don't want to, they still get a qualification, and they are free. They don't have any tuition fees if the student is under 19 when they start the course. So it's a really good option for students who are interested in art. A note on apprenticeships then. So the apprenticeships that your children are going to be looking at, given that they are doing level 3 courses, are higher and advanced apprenticeships or degree level apprenticeships. Level 3 and 4 apprenticeships are give you a qualification that is A level or just above A level. Degree level apprenticeships are just that. They include an undergraduate degree. They are available in a huge range of sectors. Not just traditional sectors like that you might expect to get apprenticeships in, but there are loads of apprenticeships in like law, accountancy, engineering, marketing. All those areas are very apprenticeship forward. This website here is the government's apprenticeship website. You can filter it. You can use it to find apprenticeships. You can use it to search by level or keyword or distance from your house. So that is a really good website for students to look at. Even if they don't think they're going to do an apprenticeship, it's really worth them having a look and seeing what's out there. So degree level apprenticeships are the big buzzword ones. They are fantastic. They combine full-time work with part-time study, usually over 5 years, whereas level 3 and 4 apprenticeships are usually more like 12 to 18 months long. So they're quite a different type of setup. If you do a degree apprenticeship, you don't pay any tuition fees and you earn a wage, often quite a good one. So you don't need a loan. You don't need a maintenance loan because you're earning. And as I say, your degree is free. You can go to university after a level 3 or 4 apprenticeship, or you can do another apprenticeship or go into full-time work if you want to. The thing to bear in mind about apprenticeships is some of them are extremely competitive, especially at degree level, and especially at well-known firms such as Google. The most competitive degree apprenticeships are harder to get than a place at Oxbridge because there's often only 1 or 2 spaces a year. So students who are applying for apprenticeships need to be quite resilient when they are applying. There is no central hub for apprentices. You have to apply for each apprenticeship separately. The website that I showed you earlier and Unifrog collate them. UCAS are starting to collate apprenticeships and are doing a much better job of it. Students can set up alerts to let them know when opportunities come up. And these applications can involve quite a long, complex process. So they will nearly always involve an application form and some kind of personal statement. They will often involve a phone interview, sometimes Skype interviews or Zoom interviews, task days. If you can think how varied a job application is, an apprenticeship application is as varied as that. They are amazing for the best opportunities, but students applying for them have to be really active and seek them out. They will probably have to apply for quite a few before they get accepted on one. And they aren't right for all students. You've got to be really work ready to be applying for an apprenticeship. So you've got to be ready to be like bang into full-time work. And if you're doing a degree apprenticeship, you've also got to be prepared to have that study alongside it. Time frame for applying for apprenticeships, roughly October, some really competitive ones and ones that have a long application process. So things like the civil service come out in October, but they run all the way through the year. National Apprenticeship Week is March, and so you tend to get quite a lot of ones pop up around them. If a student wants to go to university, but they don't want to go like now, they don't want to go next year, they can defer. So they can apply through UCAS now, but when they select the year of entry, they can choose 2025 instead of 2024, and the rest of the process is exactly the same. Now, this obviously has benefits because we can help them to apply. Or if they don't want to apply at all this year, they just want to apply in their own time next year, they can absolutely do that too. If they apply this year to start 2025 and they then go on their gap year and they decide that they don't want to go to university anymore, they just let the university know that they don't want to take up their place. They're not contracted into it or anything. I said that deferrals are not available for Oxbridge. They are. Oxbridge say that they're less likely to take students who defer, and there are some courses that you can't defer for. You can't defer for medicine. You often can't defer for maths, computer science, history of art, and a lot of STEM subjects don't accept, and law as well. Actually, a lot of universities don't accept deferrals for those subjects, so they should check if they are thinking of applying for a deferred course. Some courses will let students apply now for 2024 and we'll let them change their mind later in the year, but they don't have to do that. So again, if they apply for 2024, but they decide they don't want to go, they can call up the uni and say, will you defer? But the universities don't have to. It will depend on the course and how many applicants they've got and all that kind of business. The good thing about them applying now for a deferred course is they get all the support of the school and have been in those Monday lessons and having their tutor to help them, now, rather than trying to navigate it on their own a bit during their gap year. They can still connect their application to the school in most cases during a gap year, and we can offer some support, but obviously not the same as them being in a session for an hour a week. Work is always an option, not as common, but we have got a couple of students every year who do go off to work, and obviously that is tailored to, that is very specific to the student's situation. Some good websites there, mainly about apprenticeships. And just finally, before I pop into the chat and answer your questions, you can contact me if you need any help. My name is Laura Piercy. My email is still my old name, which is L Stanley. And I'm based at Ackland Burley, so I have the @acklandburley.camden.sch.uk email address. Each school also has an attached HE person. So I know at LSU it's Hilary Tate, Madeline Landreth at Wes and at Parley. You can also get in touch, of course, with your child's tutors, with their heads of year, with the directors of learning, who will all be able to provide advice and support. So I'm just going to have a little drink and I'm just going to have a sec to read through some of your questions in the chat. If you don't have any questions, please feel free to leave. And if you do want a copy of the presentation or the recording, you can of course email me, or I will make sure it is on the website. So I'm just going to pop into the chat and I'm going to start at the top. There might be some who've already been answered. So first question is a bit of an admin one. What is the unique learner number? That is on, so each child has a unique learner number to identify them. UCAS ask for it because it just makes it easier for them to find the student. The tutor can give you that, the child's tutor, because it's on Bromcom attached to your student's kind of profile on Bromcom. So the tutor will be able to give them that. A question there just about predicted grades. Students do not enter their own predicted grades. It is teachers or tutors that enter predicted grades. For the early application deadline, does the student need to inform their tutor that they're doing an early application? Absolutely, yes. Otherwise, if the tutor does not know that they are doing an early application, then they will not have they can't support them with that application. Early applications have very precise kind of requirements around personal statements and things. So please do ensure that your child's tutor knows if they are doing an early application. They should know by now. They can, yeah. So if a child is if a student is doing an early application, they can just put that one choice in for now, and they can add the other four in at a later date if they want to, or they can put all five in with the early application. Uh, just an admin question. So if you do subjects at more than one LSWAP school, you do need to enter, as I say, the schools separately. It does give you an error message. The way to get around that is you put their base school in as full-time from the drop-down menu, and you put the other schools in as part-time from the drop-down menu, and then it will allow you to put them in. It will still give you a warning message and say, your child, you are attending two schools. Just ignore that. Um, if students are, again, just another early entry question, if they're applying to Oxford or Cambridge or early entry, then the school will tell your child when they need to have their form submitted. I've asked for my Ackland Burley ones tomorrow. So that gives me a week to check them all, and then just time to get them sent off. But those deadlines might be slightly different at each different school because it will depend on who has responsibility for sending those forms at each different school. There's a question about personal statements. Students are applying for different courses depending on the university. You only get one personal statement. So it has to be relevant to all the courses you're applying for. That means that all the courses need to be in the same course family. So, for example, you can apply for sociology and criminology because those subjects are similar enough. You can't apply for sociology and physics because you're not going to be able to write a personal statement that possibly covers everything you need for those two subjects. The advice is to tailor it towards the course that you're applying for for the most, or that has the most choices in that course area, and to make it a bit more skills based. You should never use the name of the university or the course in the personal statement because it has to be that bit more generic. Obviously, I can't give precise advice because I don't know the exact situation. I would say to just get the personal statement to the tutor as early as possible so they can read it through and they can make sure that it works. Just about unconditional offers, what makes universities make unconditional offers? Two things. So one thing is universities can make unconditional offers if they love you and they really, really want you to come. That more than often happens after an interview rather than through an application. Some universities make unconditional offers based on they are this is going to sound really harsh, but sometimes they are looking to sort of, what's the word? They're looking to guarantee a certain number of students in a certain number of courses for the year. The easiest way to do that is to make unconditional offers because they know that if that student accepts it, they know that that student is coming. That's why I'm a little bit apprehensive about them in most cases, and students should look really carefully at them. There are some universities who make loads of unconditional offers. Russell Group universities and competitive universities tend to not make very many unconditional offers at all, if any. Um, can I talk about studying abroad? That is a huge question, and it absolutely depends on where we mean by abroad and where the student is applying to. Like Europe, for example, is very, very different to America. If that's your question, I would can you email me and just say where your child is thinking about studying, because it's a huge question with lots and lots of different answers. I talked about this a little bit already, but what's the best option if they want to take a gap year? If they know what they want to do, apply now and defer. If they don't know what they want to do, apply during the gap year would be my general advice. Can you take a gap year before a degree apprenticeship? Absolutely, yes, you can, but you can't apply for one and defer. So you would need to take the gap year, and during that gap year, apply for the degree apprenticeships. Oh, interesting. Any thoughts on getting professional help on preparing a personal statement? So there are loads of people online who will promise to write you the best personal statement in the world for a nominal fee of sometimes quite a lot of money. Some of these people will provide a good service. Some of them will be, quite frankly, rubbish because there is no sort of checks and balances in the system. A person can just set a website up and say, yeah, I'm brilliant. I write great personal statements. I don't have anyone that I would recommend. I don't have a company that I would recommend as for support with personal statements. If a student wants to pay to get support with a personal statement, that is absolutely their choice. Like anything, I would say look for personal recommendations if you can find any, or look for reviews online. And rather than kind of flashy websites and such. But it's very much down to the individual. Just to clarify, for someone who wasn't sure, what is an early application? An early entry student is a student applying for Oxford, Cambridge, any course, or medicine, dentistry, or veterinary science. If a student has, the question, a CEFR qualification, they want to do a language degree. Yes, the UCAS points from that would I'm saying the UCAS points will be relevant if they want to do a language degree. The qualification is absolutely relevant, yes, and please make sure that you put that on. But the university might still want the UCAS points to come from the combination of BTEC and A level. So they might still say that we want a minimum of 120 points from BTECs and A levels. So they wouldn't take the UCAS points into consideration, but having that qualification would be really beneficial. So it should go on regardless. I hope that makes sense. Email me if that doesn't make sense. Oh, okay. So what is the criteria that determines whether a student is granted a contextual offer? I wish I could tell you and make everyone's life easier. It varies university by university, course by course, and it's very opaque and they don't tell us. The kind of things that can lead to a student being granted a contextual offer are where they went to school, so state school students rather than independent school or private school students, where that school is, what that school, so the postcode of the school, what that school's progression to university and further education is, higher education is, what that school's results are like at both GCSE and A level. It can also depend on your postcode, where you live, and what the progression to higher education is, and what we call different deprivation indices are in the area that you live. And finally, it can depend on other what we call widening participation factors. So it can include things like the ethnic background of the student, and again, how likely people from that background are to progress to higher education. One of the things it often includes is whether or not the student's parents went to university, whether or not that student has ever received free school meals, whether they're currently in receipt of bursary, whether that student is a refugee or asylum seeker, whether they've had caring responsibilities. All these different factors kind of are considered together. So it's really impossible for us to be able to say, yes, that student will or won't get a contextual offer. And the universities use them in different ways as well. So some universities will prioritize some factors and not others, but we don't know what they are. So I'm afraid I wish I could tell you more, but that's the information I can give you. If you go to the university website and look for widening participation or contextual offers, they will sometimes give their criteria there as well. Have there been any occasions where students haven't received places on any of their 5 options? It's very rare. I can think of one in the past few years, and that was when a student applied for a course that they were very strongly advised not to apply for. They didn't get any offers. In that case, they can use something called UCAS Extra, where they can choose another course via UCAS, and the application is sent to that university. Or ultimately, they can choose to go into clearing, which opens in July. Are universities likely to accept A-star, A-C grades if they request AAB grades? Sometimes yes, and sometimes no. It often depends on what they want. If they say we want an A-star in X, Y, and Z. So, for example, if a student's applying for an economics degree, if they say we want A-star in maths, A and C, they usually won't budge on that because they've got a particular requirement there. But if they want an A-star, AC in any subjects, and a student gets an AAB, they are much more likely to be accommodating. If a student gets grades much higher than they previously got in the upcoming mocks, would the most recent grades be used? It's a holistic grade that's used. So we never use, for a UCAS grade, we never use, say, just one assessment, one piece of work. The subject teacher would always consider how the student's done up until now, what their improvement progression's been, what modules are still to come, whether there's coursework still to come, all those different factors. So it varies subject by subject, but it's a holistic grade that we use. It's never pinned to one piece of work. So if they, for example, had a really awful time and did rubbish in one of their HSEs, that isn't going to mean that they get a bad grade for their UCAS grade. Oh, good question. So do universities on UCAS see the other university's decision if a student got an offer? No, they absolutely do not. The university don't see anything except the student's application. They don't see the other universities that the students applied to either. So they can only see that they've applied to them for that course. Now, if you put your application in before the 16th of October, then the university can pretty much guarantee that they've applied for Oxford or Cambridge, because otherwise they wouldn't put their application in that early. But otherwise, they've got absolutely no idea, and they can't see any judgments that any universities make. They can't see if they invited a student to interview. They can't see the grades that they offered them. They can't see anything. And just the last question before and I'm going to log off for the evening, but as I say, you're more than welcome to email me with any questions. Do most universities in London accept BTEC students? All universities accept BTEC students, including Oxford and Cambridge. There are no universities who have a blanket no on BTEC students. Students are BTECs are welcome, and most universities will, for each of their subjects, they will say if they accept BTECs or not, and then they will say what BTEC or whatever a student needs. There are some courses that don't accept BTEC. So, for example, medicine doesn't accept BTECs because you have to have biology and chemistry A level to apply for medicine in nearly all cases. But there are some what we call medicine gateway courses that have an extra year of like a foundation course at the beginning, and they do accept BTECs. So in nearly all cases, BTECs are accepted. And yes, courses like psychology will, again, sometimes depending on the uni, but will nearly always accept BTEC students. There are some psychology courses at some unis where the student needs a science A level and they class biology, chemistry, physics, or maths as that science A level, but they are quite few and far between. It's usually only the very, very most competitive courses that is the case. Again, if you log onto the uni website, if you look on that course page under entry requirements, it will always tell you if they have really strict entry requirements. All right. Oh, sorry. I've got one more question I'm going to answer. So does foundation count towards the average grade when you apply? Does it help you get into university? I'm assuming you're talking about the art foundation, standalone foundation course here. Yes, it absolutely does. If you are going to apply to university afterwards, especially if you're going to do an art course, it's less relevant if you're not going to do an art course, but it is another level 3 qualification. It absolutely should go on the UCAS application, and it does carry weight. Some universities will, again, this is slightly different. Some universities offer degrees with an integrated foundation year. That is different to like the Art Foundation standalone year. That is a degree that's usually 4 years instead of 3. And the student does a kind of year 0, like a preparatory year at the beginning. Those courses tend to have lower entry grades than a standard undergraduate degree. So, for example, you might have a psychology course that wants ABB and a psychology course with foundation that wants CCC because that student is doing that extra year of study. If you've got questions about that, please, again, do email me or email the HE person at your school. Thanks very much, everyone. Thanks for all the great questions. I hope it was useful and have a really good evening. Hopefully I'll see you soon. Bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.